Thank you. Last week, we dealt with the high point of Joshua paying attention to what God told him to do and the Israelites crushing Jericho. Today we're going to deal with Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. And we're definitely going to be off the road and into the weeds pretty deep. So let's pick up right at the beginning of chapter 7. But the sons of Israel acted unfaithfully in regard to the things under the ban, for Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, took some of the things under the ban. Therefore the anger of the Lord burned against the sons of Israel. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Bethaven, east of Bethel, and said to them, "Go up and spy out the land." So the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, "Do not let all the people go up. Only about 2,000 or 3,000 men need to go up to Ai. Do not make all the people toil up there, for they are few." So about 3,000 men from the people went up there, but they fled from the men of Ai. And the men of Ai struck down about 36 of their men and pursued them from the gate as far as Shebarim, and struck them down on the descent. So the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening, both he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, "Alas, O Lord God, why did you ever bring this people over the Jordan only to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us? If only we had been willing to dwell beyond the Jordan. O Lord, what can I say, since Israel has turned their back before their enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it, and they will surround us and cut off our name from the earth. And what wilt thou do for thy great name?" So the Lord said to Joshua, "Rise up. Why is it that you've fallen on your face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them. And they have even taken some of the things under the ban, and have both stolen and deceived. Moreover, they have also put them among their own things. Therefore the sons of Israel cannot stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies, for they have become accursed. And I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy the things under the ban from your midst. Rise up, consecrate the people, and say, 'Consecrate yourselves for tomorrow. For thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel has said, there are things under the ban in your midst, O Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you've removed these things from under the ban from your midst. And in the morning, then you shall come near your tribes, and it shall be that the tribe which the Lord takes by lot shall come near the families, and the family which the Lord takes shall come near by households, and the household which the Lord takes shall come near man by man. And it shall be that the one who is taken with the things under the ban shall be burned with fire, and all that belongs to him, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has committed a disgraceful thing in Israel." What are some things that you notice right off the bat? Or should notice right off the bat? I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Ain't no hiding that, that's for sure. Yeah, we have this pervasive teaching going around that God is love, and God would never do things like this. He's a jealous God. Okay. What are some of the other things that pop out here real quick? We're going to get deeper into that. That's part of what's going to take us off the road and into the weeds here in a few minutes. So hold that thought a little bit. What is Joshua's approach? He starts off as a military man, doesn't he? He sends out spies to survey Ai, to do some reconnoiter work. But what do you see here in his attitude? I'm not saying that we know for sure that that was his attitude, but what is conveyed in the words here that Joshua wrote? Very much so, correct. Absolutely. Yep. Certainly at this point, it's easy to see that Joshua was not aware of this transgression. But I want to focus on Joshua himself here. What's the appearance of Joshua's attitude? You see arrogance there? A little. Before that, early in this chapter, in the first three or four verses, Joshua sends men from Jericho to Ai, go up and spy out the land. And they returned to Joshua and said to him, don't let all the people go up. Only about 2,000 or 3,000 need to go up to Ai. Don't make all the people go up there. So Joshua sends 3,000. It doesn't even look like Joshua went, does it? It's like, go handle the little stuff. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I see a change. I see a difference in Joshua's attitude here than when he met the captain of the Lord in chapters 5 and 6. Is it just me? Do you all see that too? Yeah. A little overconfident. We just took down the only walled city, or the first walled city ever built, that was impenetrable. God gave me the power to do it. We took it down. Let's just go walk over these people over here. After all, God said they've been given to us. I mean, that's what I see. Wade? Yeah. That was one thing I picked up right away, is that Joshua didn't go to God until after the defeat. That did not seem to be his pattern coming into Jericho. Okay. And that's one of the things that I want us to see in here, is that change in pattern. Yeah, he was told that they would take all of the peoples out, that the land would be theirs. So yeah, it was a reasonable expectation that he should win. But the pathway he took, I think, was his issue. I can't help but believe he would have found out that God was angry if he had gone to God first before he sent men to Ai. Was that going to be your point, Chad?
Well, they knew they needed God for Jericho. And
Yeah.
it's like us today, and I know me, it's during the good times. Things are easy. God actually warned her.
Yeah.
The hard times, it's so obvious I need God. The good times is when it's easy to get it. Militarily, AI should have slammed down.
Yeah.
But just as God used smaller force to defeat Jericho, to bless the Israelites, he used the smaller force to defeat the Israelites, to punish the Israelites. AI didn't defeat God.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, going back to last week's discussion, I think is a large reason why we don't have any, other than Rahab, we don't have any real information about the people inside Jericho, because their response was irrelevant. It was Israelites' obedience to God that created the circumstances it created. And here it's Israelites' disobedience to God that created the circumstances. And again, the size of Ai was irrelevant. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Well, I think the key here is the reason that you don't have those instructions is because God had already turned his back on them. God had already determined they were going to lose that battle, so it didn't matter what Ai possessed. They weren't going to get it. For the battle at Ai, yeah. Yeah. He turned his, this is when Joshua finds out, is after the battle. Okay, it's after the battle when Josh rents his clothes and he goes to the ark and talks to the Lord and says, "Why have you turned your back on us?" And that's when Joshua finds out about these transgressions. But God already knew about the transgressions. I think there would have been a whole lot of difference if Joshua had gone to God before he ever sent the 3,000 men up there, yeah.
When he gave them the instructions, the transgression occurred in Jericho.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, as Chad mentioned, the transgression occurred in the Battle of Jericho because Achan kept some of the spoils for himself. Yeah. Now, did the entire nation of Israel break the rules? No. It was really only very small. We know that Achan did it. We don't know how many others Achan poisoned. I think we haven't gotten into this, but Achan and his whole family, his whole household are destroyed. So there's a good understanding that it got spread around his household, and I think I read that he actually says that. But 36 men died because Achan cheated. That's a lesson for us. Yes, sir.
Even though God was furious, he still showed his love and restraint. And only 36 were killed. It could have been all 3,000.
Yeah.
If you were talking about the scale of what happened in Jericho, it would be all
Yeah.
the scale of what's going to happen in AI.
Could have been all 3,000.
Showed them mercy compared to their enemies. And that is 36. Not that 36 is nothing, but compared to the way their enemies were defeated, where it's total,
Yeah.
he still showed restraint. And his love is demonstrated in restraint.
Yeah.
I think they just couldn't believe it happened. Their courage melted. Is that how it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any doubt they were heading up there with some swagger. They were coming off beating Jericho, and they were heading up there with some swagger. So, yeah, they got repelled by a small force that should never have happened had the nation of Israel done what they were supposed to do.
The spies said, take 2,000 or 3,000. So 2,000 was even
Mm-hmm.
possible. We'll throw in an extra 1,000 just to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a cakewalk. Yeah. How does that translate to the church? Remember, I like to pull object lessons from this, and so it's not just a history lesson about the Israelites. How does all of this translate to the church? Absolutely. Absolutely. Turn to 1 Corinthians, if you would, please. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Cherry said that we go to God in all things. Yeah. Yeah. We have that example with Paul, don't we? Paul tried to go to Asia a couple times, and the Spirit kept rebuking him, saying it's not the right time. It's not the right time. Yeah, we need to pay more attention to that as well. Is now the right time for us to make this move or to go in this direction? Absolutely. If everybody's at 1 Corinthians, can someone grab chapter 1, verses 10 through 13? When you got it, read it, please. Let's follow up with that. In my book, it's just the other side of the page in chapter 3, verse 4 and verse 21. For when one says, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos, are you not mere men? And verse 21, so let no one boast in men, for all things belong to you. We've talked about what division and agreement is, and it doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything. Doesn't mean that we have to agree that the pews and the carpet, the color goes together well. There are things that we need to agree on, though, and that we need to be of one mind. What are some of those things? Absolutely. What else? Bible is the Word of God, without a doubt.
And that Jesus is the Son.
Jesus is the Son of God. And that there is one God. There's not a whole lot that becomes critical, but those things that are critical. And those are the things that we need to be of one about. And that's what Paul's talking about. Which brings us to the next side issue, tolerance. Where is our tolerance, or what should our tolerance level be? Let's take a perusal of some of the things, some of Jesus' recordings. Yes, ma'am. Is tolerance considered an emotion? Ooh, Jerry, that's an excellent question. Is it an emotion or an action? See, I've always thought that if someone expects me to be tolerant, that they should be tolerant of my intolerance before they can ever expect me to be tolerant of their intolerance of my intolerance. You're going right down the pathway that I was headed by intentionally choosing this word. That's all right. Okay. Matthew 15, 1 through 7. And again, I intentionally chose this because these are recordings of Jesus. One through 7. Then some Pharisees and scribes came to Jesus from Jerusalem, saying, Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread. And he answered and said to them, And why do you yourselves transgress the commandment of God for the sake of your tradition? For God said, Honor your father and mother, and he who speaks evil of father and mother, let him be put to death. But you say, Whoever shall say to his father or mother, Anything of mine you might have been helped by has been given to God. He is not to honor his father or his mother, and thus you invalidated the word of God for the sake of your tradition. You hypocrites, rightly did Isaiah prophesy of you. Matthew 16, 5 through 12. And the disciples came to the other side and forgotten to take bread. And Jesus said to them, Watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they began to discuss among themselves, Is it because we took no bread? But Jesus, aware of this, said, You men of little faith, why do you discuss among yourselves that you have no bread? Do you not understand or remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000 and how many baskets you took up? Or the 7 loaves of the 4,000 and how many large baskets you took up? How is it that you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread, but beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Then they understood he did not say to be aware of the leaven of the bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Matthew 21, 12 through 14. And Jesus entered the temple and cast out all who were buying and selling in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And he said to them, "It is written, my house should be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a robber's den." And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. Matthew 22, 17 through 22. And he left them, and he went out to the city of Bethany and lodged there. Now in the morning, when he returned to the city, he became hungry. And seeing a lone fig tree by the road, he came to it and found nothing on it except leaves only. And he said to it, "No longer shall there ever be any fruit from you." And at once the fig tree withered. And seeing this, the disciples marveled, saying, "How did the fig tree wither at once?" And Jesus answered and said to them, "Truly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you shall not only do what was done to this fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, 'Be taken up and cast into the sea,' it shall happen." Matthew 23. Okay, I have the whole chapter here. Let's go through different verses rather than read the whole chapter. Verse 5, "But they do all their deeds to be noticed by men, for they broaden their phylacteries and lengthen the tassels of their garments, and they love the place of honor at banquets and the chief seats in the synagogues, and respectful greetings." Verse 13, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, because you shut off the kingdom of heaven from men." 14, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you devour widows' houses." 15, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you travel about on sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a son of hell as yourselves." 16, "Woe to you, blind guides, who say, 'Whoever swears by the temple, that is nothing.' 17, "You fools and blind men." 19, "You blind men, which is more important?" 23, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin and have neglected the weightier provisions of the law." 24, "You blind guides who strain at a gnat and swallow a camel." 25, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites." 26, "You blind Pharisee." 27, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs on which the outside appear beautiful, but inside they are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanliness." Let's flip over to Luke 13. Luke 13. (31 and 32). Just at that time, some Pharisees came up to him, saying, "Go away and depart from here, for Herod wants to kill you." And he said to them, "Go and tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I reach my goal." How much tolerance, or our definition of tolerance, is here? That's the key right there, Barbara, yes. Yeah. Thank you for catching that list of similarities that's in there, with one exception, the last one, in Luke 13. Jesus is not referring to religious leaders. He's referring to a political leader. And he calls him a very derogatory term of the day when he refers to Herod as a fox. The dirty little vermin that scavenged is basically how the word was interpreted in that time frame. So, but I'm sorry, Sherry. Oh, yeah. I guarantee you my wife is tolerant of me. Probably a lot more so than she should be. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The first part of your comment is why I intentionally chose this word, tolerance. But yes, that's exactly the point that I'm trying to get to, is that by the way that God instructed the handling of Achan, it was obvious that the camp, maybe not every Israelite, but the camp of Israel knew that sin had occurred. And that's a direct correlation to what you're talking about, Tommy, is that they knew about the sin. They didn't expel the sin. They tolerated it. Okay, and I think so. I think so. I don't know that he went around bragging about it, but. Yeah.
But I mean, look at that too. Same thing is here too. You have the Israelites. I know they're not new, but they are in their promised land now. They have just consecrated themselves. What better teaching on sin and what's about to happen to the family and what he did by lying to God and back to Ananias Carr, a new church. What a great lesson to teach about the powerless and the
Yeah.
sin. I mean, I'm trying to relate to the early new church, Ananias Carr, early new kind of new Israel in their promised land now, newly consecrated. Time to teach about sin and its consequences. And what's better lesson than those people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it took me a while to be able to put that together, but I think that's the direct correlation is the book of Joshua is the early Israelites as a nation, as a church nation, compared to Acts and the early development of the church. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think it's direct. I didn't write it down. I want to say that it is in that chapter 7 that more than just Achan's family were aware of it when it all came to light. But
I think here in this discussion this morning, when we look at John chapter 8 and the long time in adultery, people would say, well, see, Jesus was tolerant. He didn't ever stone even though the law said stone.
mm-hmm.
But he says, I don't condemn you. Go and sin where you will. He wasn't putting up with sin.
No.
He saved this lady's life so that she could go on to do what was right. And I think that's the tolerance that
Exactly.
Because if we don't, they're just going to continue doing what they're doing. So, I see a Christ that does not want sin in our lives and would not tolerate sin in our lives. And when he told her to go and sin no more, he was setting an expectation of her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really kind of the point of what I'm getting at. When we talk about those things that define us as the church of God, as God's called out, those are hard lines. Now, it's probably not productive to tell the person off the street, woe to you, hypocrite. But nonetheless, like you're saying, it is the conversation we need to have with them that is not acceptable.
Whenever the father's house is being defiled and he's flipping tables, kicking people out and stuff like that too. Yeah, there's a time to be tolerant. There's a time where
Exactly. 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 I came across something this past week. It happened actually a month or so ago, about a month and a half ago. But either I didn't pay attention when it first happened, but I came across it and I found it almost as sad as it is disturbing. I want to read this because I really want this to sink in for us as God's church. During this year's convention, the House of Deputies acted to adopt Resolution D-066, addressing restrictions on access to gender-affirming care, with which the House of Bishops concurred. Resolved that the 80th General Convention calls for the Episcopal Church to advocate for access to gender-affirming care in all forms, social, medical, or any other, and at all ages as part of our baptismal call to respect the dignity of every human being. And be it further resolved that the 80th General Convention affirms that all Episcopalians should be able to partake in gender-affirming care with no restriction on movement, autonomy, or timing. And be it further resolved that the 80th General Convention understands that the protection of religious liberty extends to all Episcopalians who may need or desire to access, to utilize, to aid others in the procurement of, or to offer gender-affirming care. And be it further resolved that this 80th General Convention supports public policies at the local, state, and national levels in all of our countries to support gender-affirming care. Furthermore, the bicameral legislature also passed Resolution D-076, addressing the ongoing harm of crisis pregnancy centers, with the bishops concurring that the 80th General Convention denounces the work of crisis pregnancy centers, also known as pregnancy resource centers, and be it further resolved that the 80th General Convention apologizes for the Church's previous support of crisis pregnancy centers as detailed in Resolution 1994. The two houses also passed Resolution D-083, addressing the erosion of reproductive rights and autonomy, which affirms the right of an abortion up to the point of birth for all Episcopalians. Let that sink in. The leaders of the Episcopal religion are saying that sex changes are acceptable and we need to support them because that's part of our responsibility to respect the dignity of every human being. And we're sorry that we opposed abortion before. Now we're in favor of the murder of innocent children. I can't have a whole lot of tolerance for that, and I would hope none of you would either. I think this is the areas that Jesus overturned tables. I'm sorry? It's a lot of Satan. Yeah. Yeah.
It's easy to look at the sin of hiding some stuff under your tent and think, well, that's such a small thing. How did they have to get stoned and their family killed and burned and all this? But look at the
That's what this is, yeah. Yeah, for the sake of tolerance. Clayton, would you close, please?
God, Father in heaven, we are grateful to you for this time we've had to study your word. We pray, Father, that each and every one of us will take to heart the importance of following your laws, your scriptures, your knowledge and wisdom set before us. We pray that these historical accounts will enter our hearts and minds and help us to grow in knowledge and wisdom. We pray, Father, that each and every one of us will learn to love you more, to learn to love our brothers and sisters more, to hate the sin, but to love the person. We're grateful to you, Father, for the time that we have together. We pray that you will be with our children. We pray that you will help them and keep them safe. Be with our parents, help them to teach their children your word. Keep them safe from harm. We pray, Father, that you will continue to bless us. Help us as we strive to do your will, spread the gospel, not only here in Baton Rouge surrounding area, but also in Madison and other parts of the world. We pray, Father,